All right. So we're going to pick back up where we left off. So I'll be able to control the screen a little bit. So we will have PowerPoints up. You can take the camera off me if you want, put it on the slides. But so I'll kind of do a quick review. So we talked about last time about the master coming to three individual servants. And he gave one 5 talents. He gave one, I think, 2, and then the other one he gave 1. And so, and this is directly after the parable on the 10 virgins, with oil, 5 with, 5 without. They sold theirs. So, this was, to me, is pretty important in the scripture what we're looking at here. And again, what you got to remember is financial peace is great, but there's nothing like the peace that Christ gives you, which is the peace that passes all understanding. So you should never try to overpower that peace with this one. Okay, so you've always got to fall in line with that first. It's everything falls under that, but this does give you an additional added peace with that. But we went through that scripture, and we titled this "Good and Faithful Servant." So what God gives us, we want to be faithful with. And I think I'm put in there, if you can't manage $10, you can't manage 10,000. So if you're not faithful in the least, you can't be faithful in the whole. Okay. So we went through that. He gave into 1 5, gave into 1 2, gave into 1 1. And so we know the servant with 5 went and multiplied it 5 times over. The servant with 2 doubled his. And then I think the one with 1 talent went and buried it and did nothing with it. And so, we're supposed to be faithful in the things that we do. And I did have someone reach out to me. It's pretty cool. They were like, well, we have a little money, and we have it stashed back, and they they listened to the seminar, and in that scripture the master says you should at least had gained usury on it, so which is interest, and so they actually went and did that. So just it's the little things that add up and pay off in the end. So money management is a long game, and I'm just going to do this quick review real quick. It's a long game. It's not something that you can do and just snap your fingers and overnight be like, okay, we got this, we're good. This is something that takes time and it takes consistency. So don't think that tomorrow you're going to be like, oh, we got everything under control. This is going to be a time thing, and it's going to take you some time. Money management is not hard mentally. It's really a 2 + 2 game. It's a 2 - 2 game. If you got $5 and you spend 6, you're negative $1. If you got 5 and you spend 4, you got $1. Okay, so it's not a hard mental game, but it is an emotional game. And most of the spending that we do really is emotional. If you look at the ads that pop up on Facebook and Instagram, they've got an algorithm to see what you're looking at. They know what you want. It's hunting season for me, and all that's popping up on my feed right now is hunting boots. So that's what I'm looking at. That's what I want. They know that's what I want, and so that's what they're giving me. So, again, we went over last time with married couples. Unfortunately, this doesn't work if just one of you are on board. You both have to be on board. So if one of you's kind of driving and pushing this and the other one's not, unfortunately, it's not going to work. Things may get better, but the overall plan will not work unless you're both on board. And I put in here a quote that we read last time. If you're not happy with what you have now, why would you be happy with more of it? So remember, gratitude and gratefulness is the best attitude that you can have, because a lot of people look at as getting money as, well, I get money and you want to be greedy. But the overall goal of this, remember, is not to be greedy, not to store up and just for us, but it's to become financially free, and then we're able to give and able to give back to those in need. So remember that. We're going to go over the baby steps one more time and kind of just go over that. And then we're going to work on today is just budgeting. So just how to do a standard month-to-month budget. Okay? Does anybody have any questions from last time? Anything? All right. So again, the 7 baby steps. So the first one is to save $1,000. The second one is to pay off all debt. Step 3, save 3 to 6 months of expenses for emergency. Step 4 is invest 15% of your income for retirement. 5 is save for college for your children, if you want to. I'm a little leeway on that. I really hope mine don't go to college, but I'm hoping we have some other options by then. Number 6 is pay off the house, and 7 is build wealth and give. And so let's talk about baby step 1 real quick, and then we'll jump into the budgeting. So saving $1,000. The easiest and quickest way to do this is sell stuff that you don't need. Find stuff around the house that you don't use, Sell it, build that up really, really quick. Second, you want to pay off all debt. We went over this last time. You use what's called the snowball method. You take your smallest debt. Okay, so let's say you've got $500 on a credit card. It's $40 a month, and you maybe have 3 other credit cards and a car payment. You list those out, greatest to smallest. Okay, and it's not payment amount the smallest, it's the balance. Okay, we're going off the balances. All right, so we've got a credit card you owe $500 on. Monthly payment's $40. We do our budget. We've got an extra $80 in the budget or an extra $100 in the budget. All that extra money goes to that debt, okay? After you pay off that debt, which was $500, which had a monthly balance of $40, then that $100 you have left over in your budget plus the $40 now goes to the next debt. So now you're paying $140 extra on that. And so as you see, you pay off that debt, maybe say it was $100 a month. Well, now you have $240 freed up in your budget. You continue that on, and you see that's why they call it a snowball. It continuously gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So eventually, after you pay off those debts, you maybe have extra $300 in the budget, extra $400, extra $500. You're throwing that on debt, and it just kind of snowballs from there. After you do that, you save 3 to 6 months expenses for all emergencies. The way that you figure this out is you look at your year from last year, and we'll go over how to budget in this and how to figure out, some of you self-employed people, maybe you have side jobs, different things. I'm gonna go over all that, how you figure out all this, how you figure this all out. Saving 3 to 6 months expenses. You go out and you look at your total last year if you can. If things have changed, you gotta factor those in. But let's say your monthly expenses are around, say, $3,000. Okay, that's $36,000 a year that it costs you to live. And so within that, let's say that's your house payment, insurance, gas, groceries. You want to plan to buy new clothes, plan to buy new tires once a year, oil changes for your vehicles. You want to go on vacation. So you budget all this out. And so you do that, and then you're going to figure out how much that is factored over the year. And so let's say it's $3,000, so that means you got to put $9,000 in a savings account. Now, this is not money that you invest, so you don't put this in investments. This is money that you can go and grab immediately, okay? This is money you can go and get. It goes in a savings account, money market, something like that. You want to earn as much interest as you can on this money, but this is not checking account money. We all know if we put money in our checking account, it magically disappears. Step 4 is invest 15% of your income for retirement. Now, I did have several people reach out to me, self-employed people or people that work for employers that don't offer retirement plans. And this is very, very common where we live. You just need to go find a financial advisor and figure out how to start investing for retirement. But remember, you don't do any of these steps until the one previous above it is completed, okay? Save for college for your children. I'm really hoping mine want to start their own business or work for themselves or invest in rental houses or something that they can do that they don't have to do that. But if they end up being really smart like their mom, they might be okay at college and they can go off and do it. Fortunately, if they get my brain, they're going to struggle. I got put on academic suspension and academic probation in college, by the way. Still turned out okay. Got kicked out of college for my brain. See, it all worked out in the end, right? Nobody laughed. I really thought I'd get some laughs off of that. All of you expected it. We're like, no, we expected you to get kicked out of college. We fully expected it. Yeah, I guess it was academic probation first, then academic suspension. But they let me back in, and I finished and got my degree in something that I don't even work in anymore, so praise the Lord. Step 6 is pay off the house. Step 7 is build wealth and give. Again, we are not doing this to be greedy. We're doing this to give back. I believe the scripture that we read last time, I'm not going to go back through those because we just don't have enough time. A wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So, the goal is to create a generational wealth. We can get our families ahead in life. Again, it is not to be just rich and have all this money and not be giving with it. So the next slide. So we're going to go over what a budget is. A budget tells you what you can do, not what you can't do. Okay? So a budget is a guide to tell you what you have the power to do. Most people look at a budget and they say, well, this is going to tell me everything that I cannot do. That's not it. It tells you what you can do. So, if you like energy drinks and you want to spend $3.79 a day on it, 5 days a week, you need to put that in your budget. All right, so if I want to spend $20 a week on energy drinks, I just simply put that in my budget, make sure I plan for it. A budget is about planning, okay? And so I did, like anyone else good would do, I went and isolated a quote in the message, and I got this from Brother Branham in 1952, and I'm just kidding about isolating a quote, but he said, "We're never out to receive finance, never." And he's talking about going overseas on a mission trip. He says, "If I ever get that in my mind, God help me to act gentleman enough about me to walk off the field and pray through till God gets my heart right with him again. See, it's not that." He said, "But we're a little bit desperately needy now." He said, "It's true." He said, "Because I was out of service for about 7 months. I went several $100s in debt, and I've got to get that up." He said, "And then I've got to make up my budget for overseas where I know a vision is calling me." And he says, "I believe when it's all made up, then God will let me go." So look at how important the budget was to him. You know, he did not even want to go overseas until that budget was made because he didn't want to waste God's people's money. Is that right? So it appears to be him. He wasn't even going to go on the mission trip until that budget was made and set and what he needed to do over there. So I think if the prophet was careful with God's children's money, God's children should be careful with their money as well. So I found that quote. He only mentions budget about 5 times in the scripture, in the message. But when he does, he's usually dealing with a mission trip, or they were building, I think, for a church fund. He talks about that. And then one other place he was talking about another mission trip. So again, some quotes. A budget tells your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. So I think Dave Ramsey talks about this a lot. And that's actually a quote from Dave Ramsey. And he talks about this a lot is every dollar is like a little soldier, and you're going to tell it what to do. So every dollar is an employee to you. And you see that you tell it, well, this one's going to go here, this one's going to go here. And a lot of what I'll show you today is called a zero balance budget. This scares a lot of people. My wife's not a big fan of it sometimes. But what it is at the end of the month, you balance out at zero to having no money left. But you tell that money to go into savings. You tell the extra money to go here and go there. It is a little difficult because it doesn't give you much leeway for error. You know, so let's say you've got $300 budgeted for groceries, and you've got $50 budgeted for eating out, and you go $25 over budget, so you went $75. Well, you got to pull that money from somewhere else. It doesn't magically just appear at the bottom line, so you got to go pull that from another budget because you're working with your total monthly income. So used correctly, a budget doesn't restrict you, it empowers you, and it really does. It's hard. It's hard to get on a budget, but once you start, it really does let you know. It kind of gives you that peace of mind where you're like, I know where this money's going, I know where it's coming from, and it just kind of makes everything fall in line there. I added this quote in too. It was from an unknown author, but it says, "More money can't fix bad spending habits." So I think we talked about that a little bit last time, is the more you make, or, a lot of people make a lot of money, but it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep, right? So somebody making $250,000 a year and spending $250,000 a year, and then someone making $30,000 a year and spending $20,000. At the end of the year, the lower income individual has more money than the high income earner. So always remember that's how much money you keep. Okay. Here's simply the definition of a budget: it's estimate of income and expenditure for a set period of time. We are going to do our budgets based off of a monthly time period. Okay. We will get into self-employed people here in a minute and kind of talk about how they need to do their income, because it is very difficult for a self-employed individual to balance theirs over a year. So your budget needs to be completed monthly and checked weekly, and in some cases daily. So it depends on where you are in the baby steps and how often you need to be checking in with your budget. The main thing, again, with couples, because most of the people here are married couples, you got to be on the same team, okay? If you're an individual, that's great. It's you, no one else. You can sit down and you kind of can hold yourself accountable. But a husband and wife, you both got to be on the same page, okay? Just remember that. It won't work. A house divided will not stand. So it's good to plan for the year or even 3 or 5 years, but your budget needs to be completed monthly. So I'm really big on setting goals, so you have something to strive for. So you should set a 1-year goal where you're going to be in a year. And again, to me, this is really fun. You can sit down with a calculator and you can see where you're going to be financially. You can, and that's with nothing going wrong, and those changes as you go through the year. But it's very, very fun. Now, you're going to prepare your budget on your net income, which is take-home pay. Okay, so we're not doing it off the gross like everybody else, like the government and all that. It's not gross. This is your take-home pay. So this is cash that you have to work with, okay? So remember that. So let's go over real quick income. So I did this just simply for the math, okay? So let's say your bring-home pay is $500 a week. Okay, let's average that over the year. So we're going to take 500 times 52. That's how many weeks are in a year. We come out with 26,000. Okay, 26,000 divided by 12 is $2,166 per month. So your monthly income, bring home pay, is $2,166. Now, let's talk about self-employed individuals. You need to use last year's income, average that out over a monthly rate. Now, I know some of you're going to have more work in the winter or you're going to have more work in the summer, but you still need to average it out over the year because you need to know what you're working with. Now, so if the previous year's net income was $30,000, you divide that by 12, you come up with your monthly income of $2,500. That's what you need to base your budget off of. Now, if you're new to being self-employed, you do not have your past history, you do not have a set weekly income, what you're going to do is your expenses should not be varying that much, right? Your life expenses should not be changing week to week. One week you shouldn't have to spend $1,000 to live, and the next week $100. Those should be kind of set. So, and again, your expenses, which we'll go over here in a minute, you should know what those are going to be based off of the next month, right? So you would figure your expenses at a monthly rate and your income at a weekly rate, okay? So what it is you plan your budget for the month, and then week one, say you make $750, but then week two you make $375. You factor that out over the month, and you just check your budget weekly. So it's like, where am I at now so I can know where I'm going to be next week, okay? This is tedious, but it is necessary. So I don't put giving under expenses. That'll come next, but this should be the first thing that we look at doing. Tithing, I put 10%. If you have any questions, talk to your pastor. Don't ask me about tithing because I will not instruct you on tithing. Offering, if you're given simply to receive, then you're doing it wrong. So the thought here is not to just give so that I get back. I'm going to give this and God's going to bless me. Now that's a good thought to have. That's the belief that you should have. That's the faith that you should have. But you should give without wanting to receive, right? If you're giving to receive, that's not a gift. That's a trade. It's like, I'll trade God $5 for health. That's a trade. It's not how this works. Like, well, I'm going to give my wife a back rub, but she's giving me one after I give her one. That's just a trade. Man, stone cold faces in the audience tonight. So you'll never outgive God, but you need to track it and plan for it, okay? You got it. All y'all are like, she still hasn't given me that back rub back. This is not a fair trade. But that's what a gift is, right? If Stuart gave me 12 arrows, he's like, hey, I want to give you these, and then I gave him $100 back. That's just a trade. It's not a gift, okay? So tithing, talk to your pastor. Offering, set in your budget. Know what it's going to be and follow it, okay? Now, there's going to be times where maybe a special minister will come through or the pastor asks you to give to a certain thing. Then you do that as you feel led, right? And then you go back and adjust the budget and say, well, I took an extra 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 out of this. I'm going to calculate it out of this. And so, we decided to give to a missionary, so we're not going to eat out this month. We're going to do something else, okay? Well, it's pretty easy to do. Always give without remembering, and always receive without forgetting. I thought that was a really, really cool quote that I had logged back. So always give without remembering, which means don't give to receive. You're not giving this so that people know what you did or so that even you know what you did. And then always receive without forgetting. So when you're blessed, remember that, okay? Malachi 3:8, I threw this scripture in there because I think I mentioned it in the previous one. Will a man rob God? And he says, yet ye have robbed me, but ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? And he said, in tithes and offerings. So, the viewpoint, a lot of people are like, well, I've got to pay my tithes. That's my duty to God. But you also want to pay and actually give in offering as well. I believe the more that you give, the more that God will bless you. But again, if you give with the attitude that you're going to receive, you're giving in the wrong spirit and the wrong mindset, right? So next, we're going to talk about a savings. So the emergency fund, Jen and I still use the emergency fund all the time. So what we do is, even though we have, I think we're on baby step 6, even though we have the money over here in a different account that we have set up, the way that we use the emergency fund is say if we're running through the week and maybe we're going to come up short or we need extra money for something that is planned, we pull from that $1,000. So I always keep that emergency fund tied to my checking where I can get to it very, very quickly. You can even set it up automatically as a sweep into your account that if you go under a certain amount, you can pull over from it. But then the way I have it set up is I think it's like $45 a week is directly deposited into that fund. So when it gets over that 1,000, when it gets up a couple $100, I'll transfer that out and move it around. But a lot of times, if I have to use it, it'll build back up very, very quickly, or it's usually right there. But I try to keep an eye on that. I always try to keep that at 1,000. So if you use the emergency fund, redo your budget and build it back to 1,000. This is kind of your rainy day fund, and it's always going to rain at some time. Any of you who have lived in the last few years know that you're going to need some extra cash at some time to do something. And again, these are emergencies. A vacation is not an emergency. A birthday is not an emergency. A new boat, unfortunately, is not an emergency. The money is not for impulsive purchases, right? This is for immediate emergencies. So an emergency is when your tire blows out. An emergency is when something happens wrong with the car. An emergency is when you have to take your kid to the emergency room and health insurance covers this, but you got a $100 copay or whatever it is. Those are emergencies, okay? A vacation is not, a new purse is not an emergency. Nothing is an emergency, okay? A sale at your favorite store is not an emergency. No one likes the budgeting part as much as the last one. Jen asked me how the last one went. I was like, it went really, really good. And so she didn't get to come to it. And so she's sitting on this one, and it's not going very, very good. So everybody's just kind of like, quit telling me what to do with my money. And husbands and wives, you'll have that conversation when you start budgeting, especially if you're dual income. So get ready for that one. Nobody? Yep. All right. Expenses. Let's go over expenses. I'm trying to get people to lighten up just a touch. So I kind of listed out expenses. Now, these are going to vary for each family, right? Some of you are going to have different fees. You may have an HOA fee. I've never lived in a nice enough place to have homeowners association. So, some of you are going to have different fees, but you need to budget those in, whatever those fees are. You're also going to have annual fees. And what I like to do is if I have a big annual fee, I factor it out over the month. Okay, so like if I have my gas bill, we use propane to heat the house. Our hot water heater runs off propane. So, I buy that, I think I buy it about once a year, and it's about $400, $500, $600. But you want to factor that out over the months, okay? So, if it's $600, you divide that by 12, you set aside that much money through the month. Now, you don't need to leave it in a checking account, or it will get swallowed up in that. Set it aside, open a different account, put that in there so that you budget for it. So, but most typical families, your expenses are going to be housing, vehicle transportation, food, health, insurance, personal, and debt. So I do want to go over just a few things with you. Now, again, a lot of this is a matter of opinion, and I have a lot of people get mad at me when I talk about vehicles or homes or amounts or any of that, and it's okay to be mad at me. It's not going to bother me at all. So when I tell you this, it doesn't mean that you need to go and just, well, this is what Alan said, and Brother Ben put him up here, so we've got to follow it, blindly. No, that's not the case. All I'm telling you is the average that is factored out for us. This is what we should do. So mortgage rent, this is we're going to go into the housing, so we're going to individualize all these items in our budget, and we're going to go over those. So for housing, usually first is mortgage or rent, right? You got your home payment or your rent. The payment should never exceed 25% of your take-home pay. So this is where a lot of people get mad. That doesn't mean that if you pay more than 25% of your take-home pay that you need to go and sell your house and do something really, really crazy. You obviously need to get guidance, but you shouldn't have a house payment or rent that's more than 25% of your take-home pay. So this individual that we're going to do a budget on, we've already done their income. They make $500 a week bring home pay. 25% of the 2166, which is their monthly income, net income, is $541.50. That individual should not get a house payment or rent higher than that. Okay? Now, this is just, this person that we're doing this budget on, I gave them a credit card payment, an auto payment, and a house payment. So you may not have an auto payment, you may not have a credit card payment, then you can squeeze a little bit more into your mortgage and rent. So remember, this is not set in stone, but these are good things to remember. So the way that I did mine and Jenny's, when we were looking at this, we wanted to do a 15-year mortgage. It had a better rate. Now the payment was double. It was actually it was about 75% more. And so that's good. But at that time, I think Jen was still working in nursing. I was working still, and I think I was even embalming on the side. So that payment wasn't that bad. Now, when Jen quit nursing and went full-time at our business, that changed a little bit. That payment kind of increased a little bit. So it's pretty high now. It's still not over 25% of my take-home pay, but that's something you want to pay attention to. Okay, so like if you do have a dual income or you're wanting to slow down on your workload, you want to kind of be thinking about that in the future, like, do I want to pay for this for 30 years or 15 years? So the goal is to get a 15-year mortgage. You're going to get a lower interest rate, and the amount of interest that you'll pay over the life of the loan is going to be drastically less, okay? So then next we have electric, water, gas, trash, internet, phone, etc. So now you could go through your budget and you figure out what you need for your house, how much you need. Some of you are not going to have a gas bill. Some of you may have natural gas instead of propane. But the main thing when you're doing this is you want to make sure that you don't leave any stone unturned. Anything that you're going to have to pay for that year, you're going to want to make sure that you do. So I've got an example for you. If you bought a $150,000 house at 6% and you did a loan term of 30 years, the total interest you'll pay over the life of the loan is $174,000. That's the interest, not including your payment, not including your principal reduction. Okay, so the $150,000 house that you bought, you actually paid $324,000 for it over a 30-year. So you paid $174,000 in interest. If you do it on a 50-year loan, you pay $77,000 in interest. So you pay almost $100,000 less a year in just half the term. So remember that when you're going into this. Interest is calculated over the balance daily. Interest is accrued daily. It never takes vacation. It never sleeps. It is there, always earning and accruing. So it never stops. But it's figured off your balance. A lot of people have a problem with like, well, how am I paying this much, this much, this much? Interest is figured off your balance. So if your balance is $150, your payment's $800 a month, but $400 of that goes to interest. Your balance reduces by $400. $400 went to interest, vanishes. The other $400 goes to principal reduction. You now owe $149,600. Interest is now figured off of that. And it slowly amortizes out. FYI, little lesson. Okay. So those are your expenses for your housing. Next is vehicle and transportation. So, and I've got some information on vehicles in here that people are going to get mad at me about too, but it's okay. Gas, tires, oil change, and maintenance. So me and Jen have been trying to figure out a way to buy a vehicle through our business because we do not want to go buy a vehicle because I've preached so hard against them, but we want one so bad. So we've been going back and forth on this for forever. Can we afford one? Yes, 100%. Do we want to do that? No, we're very divided on it. So, we go back and forth. I just want you to know how the struggle is. Like, even though we have the money to do it, it's hard to go and just say, man, do I want to spend it on that though? Do I want to get $1,000 payment, or do I want to travel 2 weekends a month, or do I want to travel 1 weekend a month? And so there's these thoughts all the time. No matter where you get in this financial peace program or where you get in this, you're always going to have these challenges. It's not just going to vanish to where you don't have to make decisions anymore. But a good rule of thumb is, and what we've come to, because we've been talking about this for months now. Finally the other day we didn't have kids, so we sat down and we kind of talked, and we decided not to do it. The next day we were both sending vehicles that we were finding online. Now we're probably not going to buy them, but you're still going to go through these struggles. It's not going to change any bit. You're like, well, we don't have car payments. Our cars work fine. Mine's a little loud and old and doesn't have a full-size back seat, but it gets us from A to B. Hers, you know, we were talking too, it's like, you know, if we get you a new vehicle, the kids are just going to destroy it anyways. You know, they've ripped our seats. They've just destroyed the vehicle, destroyed it. So these are things that you've got to think of, right? But you want to plan for gas, tire, oil changes, and maintenance. I know people that will go get a new car so they don't have to put tires on it. Don't be that person. Change your oil, maintenance your car. These are very, very important things for longevity of vehicles. You know, my vehicle is 24 years old. Jen's is right at 18, 15 years old. They run fine. Hers actually has more miles. I think it's like 206. We had to have new wheel bearings put in and brakes, and it was $900. And that's a pretty expensive bill, but that's better than a $900 monthly payment every month. So you've kind of got to factor these out and say, you know, once you get that payment, you've got sales tax, you've got your insurance that's going to go up on a vehicle that's priced more. If you get a loan on it, you've got to have full coverage because the bank requires it. You know, there's all these little factoring things that kind of trickle into this, okay? But you need to factor for gas, tires, oil changes, maintenance, anything that's going to fall under that vehicle transportation, okay? All right, food. Groceries, restaurants, you should not be eating out if you're not greatly reducing your debt. So a lot of people remember when me and Jen were doing the program, we were pretty hard on this. And, you know, like if the church was going to McDonald's, we wouldn't go. We would just skip and we'd go home and eat. You know, it just was what it was. So it's not fun to maybe do this part. I thought it was because I like my wife and I like being home. So to me, it's better than seeing any of you guys. So, you know, I was fine with it. But it doesn't work for everybody. There's a lot of social people out there that require that social interaction. So now you should never recluse and pull away. That's bad, right? I love all of you. You're welcome at my house anytime after the fall of 2026. But, you know, this is a hard part. It's not as fun to go home and say, eat a bologna sandwich when you have money that you could spend on eating out. But that's why you've got to know the why. We talked about this in the last one. Why do you want to do this? And again, I gave you my why so I can spend more time with my family and have financial freedom where I can work for myself, do whatever I want. And so that's kind of my why. So got 23 minutes left. So I really highly wouldn't recommend eating out. I've had people argue with this. A lot of what's really funny is I've only given this seminar about 3 or 4 times, and I've done a lot of individuals one-on-one. But somebody will always come back to me after this and tell me a better way, what they're doing that's better than this. So I can't tell you what you're doing is better or worse. I'm not going to get into that argument with you or discuss that. If you come up with me with something, I'm just going to stand there and nod my head and say that's crazy and then walk away. I can tell you one thing, this plan does work, okay? If you're not going to stick to the plan, just don't stick to the plan. But if you're going to do it with your whole heart, do it wholeheartedly, and I promise you great things will happen. So the next we're going to go to is health. Since I own a gym, I put a gym membership in here, just if any of you want to give me money. But you got medicine, gym, supplements, and doctor visits. There's other things that fall within this, so you should be thinking about that. I think if any of your employees offer an HSA account, you need to be using it. If they don't, you can set one up through your bank, easy peasy. Your HSA is deducted out of your gross different than other expenses. So the government does not tax your HSA dollars the same way they tax your income dollars. So you make this income, and you actually say you give, me and Jen, what I give, I think I give $100 a week to HSA. And if I was to just take that income, the government would take like 40% of it. But instead, they only take like 10 or 15%. It's a much lesser percentage. So I get to keep that out. Now, you can only use it for health-related costs, but the government does not tax it the same. So they are very important to have. You can build this up over time. You can use it for long-term health. We use it for all of our co-pays. ER visits, you get an HSA debit card, you use it like that. So if you don't have that, you can set that up on your own, okay? If you do have it, when you give to it, you'll notice that your net doesn't change as much when you give to that, okay? So I believe health is very important. Over the overall lifespan, When you get older, the better you took care of yourself at a younger age, probably the better, unless there's drastic health conditions, the better you're going to be off in your older age. All right, next is insurance. So we went over this last time. Health insurance, I've been very fortunate that my employer or my wife's employer has always given health insurance benefits. I understand that it's very, very expensive if you do not have an employer that offers this. I hear it's insanely expensive. I know there's opportunities out there for others. What I would do is reach out to a family that's similar to yours in size and location and see what they're doing. Figure out if there's, I think there's some families that do this Christian MediShare. I think there's something that come through Obamacare that people can still tap into. So look at all of those options. It's very important to have health insurance if you can. If you can get it for free or qualify for some kind of program, go for that. Auto insurance, anything that you do on, you should have insured. Now, I was actually talking about Jen, my truck, I don't think it's really, if I went to sell it, it's not worth much. But I think I still have full coverage on it. So maybe paying $75, $80 a month when I could maybe pay $40, because the insurance company's not going to give me that much anyways. So if it lasted another year, I'm going to recoup my losses in that monthly payment. So could switch that from full to liability. So there's things like that. But remember, if you do that, you're taking that risk to where they're not going to give you a dime for your vehicle. So always make sure you have that factored right. Risk versus reward. Life insurance, we talked about this last time. Every head of household income producer should have term life insurance. It is easy to do. I think I have $1 million or more in coverage. Now it's a 20-year term, okay? So when I turn, I think I got it when I was 30 this last time because we increased it, maybe 30, 32. When I turn 52, it goes away. Now, the insurance companies typically win on these because they really do factor that you're going to live beyond that. But if there was a catastrophic event, vehicle wreck, something else, any hunting accident, anything like that, they would pay. And so you want to set this up to 10 times of your bring home pay. So if you make $50,000 a year, you want to have a term life policy insurance covering $500,000 a year. That way your wife does not have to go back to work for a good 10 years. She can live continuously as she is for 10 years. You should have it. I think $1 million coverage on me. My blood work's good. My blood pressure's good. My heart rate's good. So the stuff that they did, I think it was like $57 a month. So to me, it's worth having that so that my family would be taken care of if I died. Homeowners insurance, etc. So whatever types of insurance you have, some of you self-employed people may pay for like a disability policy through like Aflac or something like that. You can buy those policies. Just make sure you budget for it, whatever it is. Personal, phones, clothes, childcare, entertainment, subscriptions. Cut any subscription if you can, restaurants, date nights, vacation, etc. So this is where the budget remains fun. You plan for the things you're going to do. So if you want to take your wife on a date once a week or once a month, just depending on how much she can stand to be around you, you want to plan for this, okay? Phones. One thing that I've found is phones are so expensive. I cannot tell you how much I want to overthrow AT&T. But the phone bills are just ridiculous. Try to find the best. And the good thing is there's a lot of plans out there now that can get you similar to equal service for a lot less of the price and no contract. Try to find something like that, especially if you're starting off. You do not need 5G Wi-Fi coverage while you're driving down the road. Get what you need, okay? But try to limit these. You don't need every time they come out with a new phone. You don't need to go get a new phone. They're expensive. They always lock you back into a contract. If your phone breaks and it's $100 to get a new screen, or they can set you up on a $27.99 monthly payment plan for 36 months, which one should you do? The $100 screen. Y'all should have been shouting it at me. Okay? So you want to be thinking about these things. Okay? These are things that you kind of ingrain in yourself, and eventually you'll change and be a grouch like me when somebody tries to sell you something. Nobody laughed again. So the phones, clothes. Again, I think I was telling Joel this. You only need one belt. It can be reversible if you want, but you only need one belt. You only got 2 feet. You don't need a ton of shoes. I'm sorry. You just don't. I have dress shoes, work shoes, weed-eating shoes, hunting boots, and I do have 2 sets of hunting boots. got me there. I got 2 sets of hunting boots. But remember, this is not about the items. We talked about last time. You want to have an experienced, you want to have a good, fun life, right? That's what I want to have for me and my family. So to me, it's not about the items. It's not about those things. So just try to limit those things and buy necessity items. Entertainment. I know none of you have any music apps or Disney Plus or Netflix or YouTube. None of y'all have that because we're in the message. So if you do have it, cut it. Subscriptions. If you've got magazine subscriptions, I don't even know who reads magazines anymore, but cut them. If you've got any subscriptions on your phone, like games or apps or anything like that, cut those things out, okay? Budget for restaurant date nights, vacations, etc. So if you want to budget for a vacation, you just figure out how much the vacation is going to cost. Whatever's left over in your budget, you put to that. Okay, now these are going to factor into the debt here in a little bit, and then you plan that out, okay? Birthday parties are not a surprise. We know what that's going to be. We know that our kids are going to have one every year. They're going to remind us about 6 months ahead of time, so we can kind of plan for those things, right? At least my kids do. And what I do, me and Jen do that I really like is we put $10 a week into an account for our kids. It's automatically pulled out, and we use that occasionally for birthdays, Christmas. Sometimes it builds up. This last time we went on vacation, Jen doesn't even know this. She just lets me do it, but I took out 150. I took 50 out of each one. We used that for them to have fun at the beach, gas, whatever it was. Wherever that money went, it went to them going on vacation. So that's something cool that you can do, and you just kind of have access to that money where birthdays, Christmas, whatever else, it's not a surprise. You can just jump in and do that. Now, some of you that got 5, 7 kids, that kind of adds up over the week if you're giving $10 per child. So you may need to factor that out, pun intended, for all the 4 family kids in here. Still only got 3, so. So let's talk about debt here for a minute. Auto loans. It's a good rule of thumb. Now, again, this is where people are going to yell at me and get mad at me and text me later. But again, this is just my opinion. So you should never own vehicles exceeding half your annual income. Now, this is even if you're debt-free or not debt-free. So if you make $100,000 a year, your vehicle shouldn't be more than $50,000. Now, again, what I tell people is if you're debt-free, you have the money to do it, or you're not debt-free and you have the money to do it, do what you want to do. I don't care, okay? If you like doing those things, you should do them. This is not for everyone. This is for people who want financial peace. They don't want items or things. They just want to live a little bit different. They want to lay down at night and just kind of breathe a little easier. So, and that doesn't mean the people that have auto loans aren't, right? I've had them almost all my life. I just don't have them now and haven't for the last 5 or 6 years and don't want another one. That's just me. It's not for everybody. So, I mean, we kind of want another one. And when I say we, I strongly mean my wife, but I'm kind of there with her. But again, I'm not chopping any of you down if you've got one. I think I showed y'all in the last program that, we had spent $150-some thousand on vehicles in our first 7-8 years of marriage. So again, this is not for everyone. This is for who wants to live just a little different, okay? So personal loans and credit cards. Now, you're going to have debts. That's fine. So the next slide that I'm going to show you is going to be kind of an example budget. Now, if any of you want me to sit down and do your budget with you, it's kind of hard to see on the screen. If any of you want me to do that, that's fine. I will definitely do it for you. No charge, but just know I'm going to be in there telling you what to do. So you don't have to listen, but that's just the unfun perk that comes with it. So the monthly budget we did was someone who brought home $500 a week. This is their net pay. This is what they get paid. And then I also added in an additional monthly income of $250 for a side job. So let's say you go do something once a weekend. You go and clean gutters, or you go mow a few yards, or you go clean a house, or you clean vehicles on the side. Whatever you do, you get an additional $250 in income. So the way you figure that is 500 times 52. So there's 52 weeks in a year. It comes out to $26,000. Divide that by 12 months in the year. That comes out to $2,166 plus your $250 side job gives you a net income of $2,416. Okay. So out of that, I put the tithes at $215, offering at $50. Now these are monthly expenses. You give as you feel led. Okay. So This doesn't mean if you're giving 75 now, you need to drop it to 50. Brother Ben, be getting on to me, okay? Don't do that. You give as you feel led, okay? I think I don't remember how I factored the offering, but it was like $5 or $10 every time we were in church. I think it was $5. It was 15 times a week. I put $15 a week that you were giving an offering. You feel free to give 3 times that amount, okay? This was just a factor that I did. I put their expenses, their mortgage and rent was $675. Now, that's over the 25% of their bring home pay. So they're already off a little bit there. Electric's $125. Your electric fluctuates. If any of you lived through the summer of 2023, August and July, electric bills were not fun. I think my last one come in on August was $200. Did not like it at all, but it is what it is, right? Water is $25. Some of you have a well. I don't have to factor in water. If you have a well, you don't have to factor in water either. Homeowners insurance, auto loan, credit card, auto insurance, term life insurance, clothing, groceries, gas, internet, phone. And so after you factor all these items out, and I did these pretty close to what they should be, okay, for someone making this amount of money, having a house that would have a $675 payment, I factored this out the best they could, and so their balance remaining is $41, okay? So, and, you know, a lot of you are like, oh, man, well, I have more than $41 in the month. Some of you are like, well, I don't even have $41. Well, it doesn't matter what you have left, what you don't, okay? You're going to factor this to your lifestyle, okay? Now, what you do with that remaining $41, does anyone want to tell me what you do with the remaining $41? No. Do not treat yourself. Allison. You add it to the smallest debt, okay? And so this $41, let's see what our smallest debt is. Smallest debt is going to be the credit card. It has a monthly payment of $45, and I think I gave them a balance of around $500. So that $41 is going to go back into the budget until that debt's paid off. That debt is $45. So at the end of this, when that debt's paid off, you have $86 extra in the budget, right? Now, I'm thinking some of you are crafty. You're going to find ways to cut the budget. You're going to find things to sell that you don't need. One thing that I like to do is I like to scrap stuff. I don't know how I find metal, but I like scrapping stuff. It's just fun. Going to the scrap yard, you know, I enjoy it. I like scrapping metal. You know, last time I took a load, I made like, I don't know, $270. Took me a long time to do it, but I loved it. It was fun. So find nifty ways to make extra money. And you're just like, man, do I really want to put the time into that? You know, do I want to do these things? That's, again, up to you. What's your why? Why do you want to do this? So as you go through and budget, remember the budget is there to tell you what you can do, not what you can't do. Now, husbands and wives, hear me well. You don't want to come in, let me tell you, if you're trying to convince your spouse to do this, if you come in guns blazing, like this is what we're doing and you're going to submit yourself and we're going to do this, it's not going to work. It's not. And most of the time it's the wife doing this to the husband. It's not the other way around. Unfortunately, it's more that way. So just know the better that you can present this to them, the better it's going to come across, okay? Me and Jen did not always magically agree on money. I think our first 2 or 3 years, most of our fights were over money or her family. That was it, you know. This is why Jen doesn't come to these, but that's what it was. And so they talk about divorces, and the majority of divorces are over financial problems. So a good way to limit these is to kind of plan for these. Now, you're not going to always find a spouse that's going to fall into line with this. You're just not. Some people are just not going to do it. So what you've got to do then is just really get down on your knees and pray that God can change them, and you do the best that you can, right? But I think if you can come together and you can agree on this, it will drastically change your life. It'll change your home life or how your kids perceive home life, how they perceive giving and all these things. So you need to set the tone for your family. But again, you want to agree on these things. When you come together to do your first budget, there's going to be one person that wants to slash everything, me, and there's going to be one that wants to kind of put money where it should go. Like, well, we should put money to where we eat out once a week or once a month because we don't want to just alienate ourselves from everything and go home and eat rice and beans and not talk to anyone with the lights off. You know, that's not good either. So can it be done? Sure. Would it be fun? No. But it can be done. So you don't want to do those things. You want to find that happy median. So you don't want to come into your spouse and be like, I know that you like coffee. You got to quit. That's just destruction waiting to happen if you tell your spouse they got to quit coffee. Be like Jen telling me not to drink energy drinks. I'll be like, you're kind of crazy. You're creeping me out a little bit, So you can't do those things. And this is definitely not marriage counseling. But I will promise you, your fights, or if you do argue about money now, this is going to fix 100% of those arguments. Excuse me. In the message, we don't argue, we discuss. So this is going to fix those discussions. Got to throw that in. Our pastor has a perfect church. We got 5 minutes. Before I kind of close this out, does anybody have any questions or thoughts or comments? I know most people just hit me up after the thing, but if you have any questions right now, ask away. But I'll give you time while I close it up. The budget is set monthly. You know what your expenses are going to be, okay? If you have an annual expense, remember, factor it out over the month. Go get you, if you have a big bill that comes up at the end of the year, go open up a free checking account or a free savings account. You don't want anything with fees. You don't want paper statements. You just want to put that money there and never touch it, okay? Go do that. Put that money aside. If you've got a big $500 tax bill that comes due at the end of the year or $250, whatever it is, go set that money aside and do not touch it, okay? If you have unknown income, like let's say you are self-employed, one thing that I've talked to several people about is once they get this, once they kind of get their life in line on the financial side, self-employed individuals are able to go through those slower times because they have this additional cash set back for that. They maybe paid themselves for that. There's a really good book, and I think me and Brother Isaac were talking about it. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. A lot of people won't read it because he doesn't give tithes and offering, but you can just read it and know you're going to give tithes and offering. But what he talks about in that book is paying himself first. And so that's what I've tried to do, and Jen and I have tried to do is to always pay ourselves first. Now, when I say that, know that we pay God first, right? We give our 10%, then we pay ourselves first. So before I pay debt, anything like that, I've already got automatic transfers going into savings and then all of our retirement money plan going into the investments. So I can't get my hands on that to spend it. I've already paid it to where it goes somewhere where I can't just go and easily access that money. So the more that you can do that, now again, you don't want to do any of that until you're debt free, okay? This is a baby step. And I have a lot of people come up to me at the end and they'll be like, well, we want to go ahead and start investing, but we're not debt free and all this stuff. It doesn't work that way. You've got to go through the baby steps, okay? Any questions? Tell me. See, I like that. Yeah, I agree. Hey, me going to the bow shop saves me every day. Yeah. Yeah, see, that's the thing that I'm embarrassed most with. Like if me and Jen sit down to do a budget and I have to budget hunting season in, then she's going to know how much I actually spend on it. It's not fun to do. Yeah, that's where that's right. That's where you go and sell scrap metal. Yeah. So baby steps one more time and we're done. Save $1,000. Tips to do this: sell everything but the kids. All right? Sell clothes on Facebook, scrap metal, find something in your garage that you don't use, that you haven't used. DVDs that you don't watch anymore because you just don't watch DVDs because you're a Christian, so you sell those. Anything that you've got, sell that you don't use, okay? And I'm being lighthearted and joking, but anything that you don't use, sell, right? It's really easy to do. So save $1,000, then you pay off all debt. Do that with a snowball method. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses for emergencies. Next is invest 15% of your income. Then you're going to save for your children's college, pay off the house, build wealth, and give, okay? All right, that's all I got. I don't know if we'll do another. Don't clap yet. I don't know if we'll do another one. Stuart's so ready to leave. I don't know if we'll do another one, but if we do, it'll just kind of be a recap of this. But if you need help with your budget, let me know, okay?